Thanksgiving is the time when families gather together and have dinner to celebrate their gratitude. However, for the Hutson family, this special occasion reminds them of the most shocking thing that happened to them. Rachel Hutson, a 19-year-old girl, kills her sick mother and sends a photo of her to her dad, who was Black Friday shopping. The mother, Susan Lee, was born on May 1, 1955, in Defiance, Ohio. She had a brother and a sister and was a former member of the Board of Bird Clubs of Virginia. She really loved birds, and that's why she was part of a bird club. She also enjoyed reading and spending time outdoors, camping, fishing, and being in nature. In the late 70s, she met her husband, named Donald Hutson, also known as Rick. They got married in 1985 and then went on to have 2 children, Sarah and Rachel Lee Hutson, who was given the same middle name as her mother but with a different spelling. They grew up as a happy family, but later her mother suffered many heart attacks throughout the years and got diagnosed with renal failure, so her systems were shutting off. She was dying. This put a lot of pressure on Rachel. She was all alone in this with her father since her sister had moved out of the house earlier. Rachel was waking up, not knowing if her mother was going to be alive. She had a lot of nightmares, which would make her wake up in the middle of the night and go check on her mother. Sometimes she wished her mother would be dead so that could be over, but her mother wished that too for herself. They were also facing financial problems, so her dad had to work as much as he could, whereas her job was supposed to help her mother and clean around the house. She started to suffer a lot from depression now. Her friends would call her and invite her to go out to the mall, but even if she went out, her mind would always stay behind with her mother. She'd be worrying about her mother the entire time, wondering about what could happen while she wasn't there to take care of her. Later on Thanksgiving Day of the year 2013, things went on as normal as a Thanksgiving Day would. Sister Susan was back for the holiday. After the dinner, at around 1 a.m., her father called her and asked her why she was still up at that time on her computer. It was at this point that an argument broke out between the two of them. Arguments like these were frequent recently for them, where they would have ongoing arguments and things would get heated. They've been arguing a lot, and that would frustrate Rachel to the point where, at one point they had to have a family meeting where they sat down and agreed to stop being so stressful so that things could get better and everyone could feel less tense all the time. But here they were arguing again, and this fight made Rachel have some real, rough, overwhelming feelings of not wanting to be there anymore, and she started thinking about taking her own life. Shortly after this argument, Rachel's father and sister left the house to go Black Friday shopping since her dad was also pissed from the argument. That time, Black Friday was after Thanksgiving, and the thing is that the sale used to be only on Fridays. That's why people used to leave their houses early in the morning, like in the middle of the night, and waited in these long lines. After the father had left, Rachel sat down and made a plan. After 20 minutes, she went to the closet and grabbed a shotgun. When she wrapped her hands around the barrel, she thought to herself that this was gonna be over. Everything was to be fine, the pain would stop, and she wouldn't have to deal with anything or anyone anymore. She thought that she was part of her problem too, so she wrote a suicide note and put it in the hall. She wrote that she was sorry about it and left different instructions on where she wanted her property and her pets to go. She loaded the gun and put the shells in. She started thinking long and started worrying about who exactly would find her. She thought that her mother would be the one to find her when she would have heard the sound. She thought that by killing herself, she'd be killing her mother anyway. She didn't want her to go through the pain and shock of finding her. So she walked out with the gun in her hand and went to her mother. When her mother saw her, she thought that Rachel was doing that as a cry for attention and said to her, "Just wait till I tell your dad." As she was looking around for the phone to call the dad, Rachel told her she was sorry and shot her at close range in the chest. Her ears started to ring after the shotgun, and she didn't think of anything else besides killing herself next. She went to look for her suicide note, and she was scared that after her dad was going to come home, he would find her and her mom dead. But then there would still be a gun in the house, and she was scared that he would do something to himself. So she called him and told him what she had done. But, of course, he didn't believe her, so he hung up the phone and called on the mother's phone. When Rachel answered the other phone, The dad kept telling her to put mom on the phone, and she kept telling him that she killed her. To convince him, she took a picture of the dead body and sent it to him. But he still didn't want to believe it, thinking that it was photoshopped and not real. However, Rachel told him that she was sorry and that she would kill herself after so that he wouldn't have to work anymore to provide for her, but he told her not to do it. She chose not to do it since that would cause even more pain to the family than she already did. Around this time, Rachel realized what she had done and realized that it was all true and had already happened. After some time, the father came quickly home, and Rachel just walked out with no resistance. She confessed to him, telling him what had happened. Donald Hutson said that his daughter Rachel was his best friend, and he has been struggling to accept that the daughter he loved so much and that he'd do anything to protect is also the murderer who killed his wife in cold blood. He was very protective of his daughter, and he wanted to get to her before calling 911 because he was worried she would hurt herself or they would hurt her. When he arrived home with his other daughter from the shopping, they were in shock. Donald was even afraid to leave Rachel alone for 30 seconds because he was afraid she would do something stupid to herself. The sister, Sarah, stood in the doorway for quite some time, looking at her mother's dead body, before going outside. Donald went into task mode, and he wanted to do the cleanup himself. He believed that it would help him go through it easier. While they were waiting for the police, Sarah had a little conversation with Rachel, who seemed calm but not herself at all. Rachel was handcuffed and taken into custody. She was put in the back of a police car, and her first question to officers was, "Is this going to be a long process?" This kind of took the officer off guard, but they answered, "It'll probably take a while," and she responded with, "Well, it's pretty clear what happened. Why is this going to take a while? Everyone knows what I did. Let's just be done with this." She then asked if she could speak to her father, who came to the car, and Rachel told him what to do with her pet chickens. She then looked up at her dad and was just kind of like, "Do you still love me?" And he answered to her with, "Yes, of course I still love you," and she just simply responded with, "Sorry." Donald had to go back inside to clean up the room. After a violent crime like this, if it happens in your home, then it is the family's responsibility to have it cleaned up and taken care of. He could have hired a company to do it since there are companies that specialize in things like that, but he felt like he needed to do it. He didn't want to leave one day and come back, and it all be gone like it never happened. When the news broke that this murder took place, people were shocked. Neighbors, people who knew the family could not believe that this could happen. They said that the Hudsons seemed like a happy family. They always seemed like they were having a good time, and were happy to be around each other. Susan was said to be friendly and well-liked amongst the people that she did talk to, and Rachel was said to be a very likable and friendly kid. Rachel Hutson was sentenced to 50 years in prison, with 35 years suspended. She will serve a total of 18 years. Her defense attorney argued that she suffered from a mental illness that went undiagnosed for years. Even her father agrees that she should not be in prison but in a psychiatric ward where she can get the help she needs. Her story tells us how important mental health is and what it can lead to if not treated. Reach out to the resources, and maybe you can avoid some catastrophic events in your own life. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to follow for more interesting crime stories.